What's up, guys? How we all doing? Hey, welcome to the how to solder the Hirose connector video is what I'm going to be calling this. All right, what we're going to be looking at is those of you that know about the good old Intel Edison knows that it's got this little bitty connector right here on the back that is just a nightmare to deal with. So here is the actual connector. Like I said, it is itty bitty, has like the finest pitch. I think it's like a 0.5 millimeter pitch or something is what it is. Well, I am happy to announce that what we got is I'm going to be providing, hopefully, I've got some stuff squared away. I'm going to get some other stuff going to like mass produce these, but I came up with the idea that why don't we try a way of being able to hand solder these. Basically you're going to have to get, like these little breakout boards or something. What I did was I just took this breakout board that I've gotten and just desoldered this so I can show you guys how this will work. But basically, if you're wanting to create your own boards and whatnot, and let's say you send it out to a fab house, because you're not going to be able to describe this, but you send it out to, PCB Pool or OSH Park or whoever, to get your boards made. You'll come back, well, the problem becomes soldering this little tiny connector onto the board, right? It's going to be, unless you have the right equipment, it's going to be quite difficult for the average person to be able to solder this. However, I propose a solution, a solder stencil. And I don't know if you can see that, but see the little holes in it? This is basically the exact footprint of this little connector. Oops, I bumped the camera there. Is basically what this is. Now, for those of you that don't know, when they do surface mount components like these, they use these stencils like big assembler houses do. Like if you send your board out for assembly, like for example the Edison board here, I guarantee all these through hole parts, well, they were probably hand soldered in. But all these little tiny surface mount components and everything, that was done by a picker place machine. And that was also done, and they screen on the solder using a stencil. Now, usually it won't be these little plastic ones. These are kind of a cheaper one, but they're still good. They still work. But usually it's a big stainless steel one that sets down over the top of the board, and they scrape what's called solder paste on. Now, this is solder paste. Looks green, kind of looks like something the Incredible Hulk would use, but it's like a green paste that comes in a squirt tube like this. You can put a tip on it. You can buy this fairly cheap. I think I bought this one off of Amazon. This is the, I think 6337 is what this is. Nope, this is the Rojas kind. So it's the it's the 96.5 3.5. And so it's the silver and the silver and tin or whatever that mixture is. So this is the Rojas, but you can also get the 6337, which is usually what your normal whatever it is, see, like this solder, it's the 6337, whatever you want to call it. That's the leaded mix. This is the ROHS or Rojas compliant kind, but you can pick this up fairly cheap. I think this was only like 15 bucks, I think, for this. And obviously it's going to last me a long time. That's a lot of solder paste in there. So anyway, you put a tip on it or whatever, and you can actually squirt out using this little plunger thing. You can actually squirt it out like a syringe and put solder paste down. Now, what is solder paste? Well, what happens is this stuff, when it's hit by hot air or put through what's called a reflow oven, which is what usually the big assemblers use, it's basically, it looks like, I don't know if you've ever, if those of you that live here in the United States, if you've ever been to a Quiznos subs, shop, that's the best way, or like a pizza shop where they put the pizza, on the one end of those oven machines, and it slides through the machine and it heats it up and melts all the cheese and everything. That's basically what it does. They stick it in one side of these reflow ovens that are a very temperature calibrated machine that then ramps the heat up and ramps it down and ramps it up and ramps it down at different rates to solder all the components down. Because when this stuff gets hot, it'll actually reflow and turn into solder that we all, the solder joints that we all see, like, like on this. Well, it's kind of hard to see it. I'm getting it out of my light. But, all the solder joints that we normally see. That's what that does. Well, what I propose is that we make a stencil that has, whoop, the end popped out of that. Well, we'll remove that. Is what I propose is we're going to make a stencil that's the same footprint as this little guy, and then we're going to squirt some solder paste on this and scrape it across, and that will basically, and then when you peel this off, you'll have the solder paste on each one of those little pads. The theory is all you'll have to do is drop this component on, hit it with like a hot air rework or a heat gun or something like that, something that gets at least 300 and some degrees, or I don't know, for the silver stuff, it may need to get hotter than that, 375, 400 degrees Celsius, and that will reflow that part down. That's the idea. So without any further ado, let's start getting into it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the solder paste, we'll put it together, take the cap out of that, put this on, put that in there, we'll set that off to the side. Flux, definitely have to have flux. Get yourself a good keister flux pen. These things are magical. I think I described one of these in my how to solder video. So these are slick. Definitely pick one of these up because you will need it. This is the best way to make sure everything gets where it's going to go and doesn't bridge gaps or do anything weird. I have these from OSH Stencils. This is a board holder. You can basically set up, because obviously the thickness of your board, this is going to be basically the same thickness as your board. So I'm going to set this up basically like this and stick the board in the middle. That way it gives me something to scrape across. You know what I mean? So I'm going to set that up like that, and then that way I can scrape across like this. And of course they give you a little credit card solder spreader thing, but that way I can scrape it across and get the thing to work. So what I'm going to do, these little solder stencils, what I'm going to do, I believe, if this looks like it's going to work out, this is kind of the maiden voyage of this. So I have not done this yet, so I don't know if this is going to work or not. So we're going to see. Basically, if you're watching this video, it worked, and kudos. If it doesn't work, you probably won't see this video. But if it does work, I'm going to probably make these available for you guys. I would like everyone to post in the comments, those of you that may want one of these, and I'm going to see if I can't make these available for you guys to purchase from me, and then that way it helps the channel, helps you guys, and yeah, does some good in the community. All right, so what I'm going to do, I brought some scissors because, let's get this out of the way, because it's a little too big. It's going to hit all this other stuff that's in there. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to cut this stencil down. So that's the nice thing about these being just that plastic. Okay, see? So we can put that on there. Let me see if I can't zoom in, reset up the camera here. Ooh, we may have to, whoops, zoom in here. Oh, let's see. Oh, see if it'll focus. It's kind of freaking out on me. Okay, that looks like that's probably about as good as it's going to get. Okay, tighten things back up. All right, now I'm going to try to do this instead of looking through the viewfinder of the camera. I'm going to try to do this right here. So we'll see if we'll see how it goes. Now, the main thing that we want to do is I'm going to get some tape, and I'm going to get my stencil seated, and then we're going to tape it down so it can't move. Okay, guys, I think I got that taped down where it's supposed to go. Excuse me for coughing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our solder paste, and we're going to just lube this up with solder paste here. What I'm going to try to do is, let's see, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do it with the camera. Let me just... and it doesn't matter. You can be pretty liberal with it. In fact, I'm going to go over here, get it started over here to the side real quick. All right, here we go. So now, just apply some solder paste down those two sides. And be liberal with it. Okay, so I got quite a bit of it on there. Now we're going to see if we can't just scrape that across. So you can't just be liberal with it. Scrape it off. That's all we need to do. Put a little more on. Okay. A little more on. Scrape it. Scrape it across. All right, now let's see how we did. I'm going to leave that on the corner of that. I'm going to look and see how we did. If we need to do it some more, I may do it some more. So that's basically what you do. I'm going to basically touch this up where I can actually get down on top of it without the camera in the way, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, looks like it came out actually pretty good. I looked at it with a fine eye loop. At least we call them eye loops. If you guys don't have these, I recommend one of these. This is a Bosch & Loam. I think this is a 8X, half inch by 18X, little eye loop. See, you just hold it up to your eye and it will magnify stuff. Well, you can even see that there. Look at that. See, it's looks like it's got solder paste on every single little pad. And so now all we got to do, and so this is a good inspection device. I suggest every lab should have one of these. Now I'm going to put the connector on. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take and drop this guy on there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the camera because I need to get my head down here so I can see what I'm doing with it. So I will get that on there and we'll be right back. Okay, so now guys, I got the connector on there. Boy, that was kind of tough to get that connector on there. Anyway, got it on there. Now I'm going to use one of these. This is let me back out so you can see it. This is called a hot air rework station. I got one of these, picked one of these up on, I think, eBay, fairly cheap, under $100. Get one. These things are magical. They just have different tips. Right now I've got a fairly good sized tip on it, but they have different tips, all different sizes, and they just blow hot air. And what they are is they're basically just a heat gun. There's a heating element in here, and it just has a little diaphragm pump and blows air through there, and that's all it does, and then that'll heat this up and reflow it. Wish I could show you it actually reflowing, but I'd have to have a macro lens, which I don't have, and things like that. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit it with this. All you got to do is just brush back and forth, and we'll see what happens. I may put my head in the way. I'll try to do it live for you, but we'll see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. It's probably going to get loud. You can probably hear it, but yeah, it's blowing hot air. Wait for it to get up to temp. It's got a little temp meter over here on the actual device. I'm gonna wait for it to get hot enough. Right now I've got mine set to about 380 degrees. We'll see how that does. Now you have to be careful with the air. I'm gonna turn the air down a little bit because you don't want it to blow real hard because you'll end up blowing the part off the board. So remember, it does blow air. So I'm gonna turn the air down to where it's not blowing so hard. And then we'll see if we can't just heat this guy up. And the idea is once we get him heated up, that solder should reflow. Basically, it'll set down and it'll stick. Now, a little trick that I've learned is take one of your tools, and once it starts to reflow, you can see it start doing it, take and tap, just very lightly, tap on the board. And what that'll do is that'll kind of shake the solder around, and it'll cause the part to sit there and kind of wiggle and seat down. That's what that'll do. So I'm just back and forth it here. Okay. And now I'm going to keep doing that, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, I'll be back in just a minute once I get that seated down. Okay guys, I got the old microscope out here. So I'm going to turn it on its side. It's going to get a little blurry, but I'm going to turn it on its side so we can focus in and see the solder joints here. So it looks like the connector kind of raised up on us. Looks like the solder is coming up and actually touching. But it does look like, some of it did reflow. Now I will say, I think the reason, so you can see that the solder did come up and touch it. Now the reason that it's not touching completely down, I think, is due to the fact that, here, let's get some focus going on. I think it's due to the fact that there was other blobs of solder on this connector, and it caused it not to completely sit down flush. And that was because this was a connector that I desoldered and then resoldered. So, but the thing is, I don't really see any solder bridges. I just see some funkiness going on. Well, that could be one, maybe. But for the most part, looks like it actually more or less worked. Now, I think the reason that I would be willing to bet that it didn't work in this situation was because I had desoldered this and resoldered it. And I tried to clean it up with some solder wick, but I don't think that it really did that good a job. So I'm going to set it down here. Let's refocus. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this around. Let's turn this around. And I'm going to tip it up, and let's look at the other side. Shall we? So we're going to go ahead and get a little bit closer here, if I can. Get down on it. I don't know how well I'll be able to focus in. It's going to be difficult. This is so... Here, we might want to back up a little bit. Hang on just a second. It's going to take me a minute to get this focused in like we need it. Oh, here we go. Here it comes. Okay, there we go. So it looks like probably the same thing happened on this side. It kind of raised up a little bit. That could be... Can I pull it closer and focus? Well, I just see a little bit of the solder paste kind of everywhere. Maybe some cleaner could, take care of. But for the most part, if you look at it, I mean, they all seem to solder down. I bet you with a clean board and a clean connector, this would work. I'm actually, even though it's a little kind of sketchy, I'm actually fairly impressed. Like I said, just because I feel pretty optimistic, just because of the fact that this was a already soldered connector and I had to desolder it and resolder it. Yeah, looks pretty good actually, in my opinion. So yeah, guys, I think, oh hey, there's the connector. That was the wrong way to go. Blurriness, 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 blurriness. Oh, there we go. Anyway, all in all, guys, I think that it did pretty good. I'm gonna turn the lighting down a little bit. I think it did pretty good. So let's go back to the bench and we'll check out the rest of it. Alright guys, we're back at the bench. Well, what do I have to say about our little solder stencil here? I think it's a good way to go. I think maybe some refinement going, get a little more experience. This is the first time I've ever done this. And of course I'm doing it with, I actually desoldered this and then tried to resolder it, which when you desolder something that's this small and you try to resolder it back on, I tried using as much desoldering wick as I possibly could to try to get all the remnants of the solder off, and it's not really that good of a way to do it. So I do have a custom board that I'm going to be coming up with. I think I'll probably post it on Tindy for you guys to be able to use and play with. And it's going to involve the Intel Edison and this Hirose connector. That will be the real test, because I'll get a brand new fresh connector that doesn't have any solder gook on it. I'll have a fresh circuit board that won't have any solder gunk or anything on it, and that'll be the true test of this guy. And I'll probably film that too, because I'll show you the board that I'm coming up with. But other than that, it looks like this is going to work. I will let you know where these will be available and what the price is. And if you guys wouldn't mind, so I know how many of these to order, if you guys would leave in the comments who all would be interested in this. If you guys would be interested in buying one of these, where you can put it down and scrape the solder across it like I did and get the solder paste onto it so you can solder one of these connectors on, let me know, because I'd like to see how many people are going to be interested. If it's going to be a whole lot, I'll order a whole lot. If it's going to be a few, then I may only order just a few. But let me know, and I'll let you guys know some pricing on what these are going to be. Hopefully, I'll see if I can't maybe post it somewhere or something where you guys can just come at your leisure. I might be able to do this on Tindy as well, so you guys can just go check it out and get one of these yourself and try it out for yourself. So seemed to more or less work for me. Now, one last thing I will say before I go is make sure and get yourself a set of really good sharp probes. I don't know if you can see that, but those are really sharp, and you might want to test. It's going to be tedious work since there's 72 pins on this guy, but you might want to test it for shorts after it's over. Make sure that there is no solder bridges or any shorts that are going on with this guy. So definitely want to test that guy out. So, and if you want, I could take and look, and I may make a I could make a tester board, that you like snap onto it and it has all the pins or all of the stuff is in like test points or something. It might be a good idea, so you could test your solder connections on this guy. So anyway, fun stuff to come up with. I'm thinking up different things that's going to help us out, help you guys out definitely, and will also help me out because it'll help support the channel if you guys purchase some of these tools that I'll be coming up with. So Let me know what you guys think. Put down in the comments. You can also contact me on Twitter. Check me out on Instructables, all that stuff. Like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. And guys, I think that ought to do it. Take care. We'll see you next time.